Christians are doing some diabolical things, and as a result, they are pushing both non-believers and believers away from Christianity, and it's getting more radical every year. So today I want to talk about exactly what it is that Christians are doing, why it is that what they're doing is pushing people away, and why that will eventually lead to the ultimate demise of Christianity.
Like the Bible, the Book of Enoch typically depicts the stars as anthropomorphic beings, living.
That's essentially what we're witnessing here is Satan effectively using this My Little Pony vehicle in order to confuse the individual. The Bible very clearly says in the book of...
There's a lot of talk right now with this element of the COVID vaccine, that taking the vaccine and having that as proof in some kind of what they call a vaccine passport. And it reminds me a lot of what we would expect to see as almost like a precursor, as it were, to the Mark of the Beast.
Please, President Trump, please, I hope you have a plan. God, please save us from the devil, please.
In other words, a natural-born citizen of the United States of America cannot work in the federal United States jurisdictional territory, the federal United States, without being marked by the Social Security number, the number of the beast.
What do you think the mark of the beast is? We live in the first generation that has not only the technology, but the ability and the availability to microchip every human being on the planet. I mean, everybody's always said Jesus is coming back. Was the technology ever in place to mark the whole world before?
The media said Joe Biden's president. Ha 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 ha
Hey, what's up? I'm DallasWade, and welcome back to another worship service. So if you know me personally, or if you've ever watched any of my videos, you probably know that I am not a Christian. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. I left Christianity because after studying the Bible and Christian apologetics, I came to the conclusion that Christianity is unproven, unhistorical, unscientific, and self-contradictory. And since leaving Christianity, I have also discovered that Christianity is harmful, dangerous, and unhealthy on many, many levels. So there is absolutely no reason whatsoever why I would ever want to convert anyone to Christianity or help Christians convert people to Christianity. However, after countless encounters with countless Christians both in person and online, I can't help but to point out some massive mistakes that I am seeing frequently made by Christians. Mistakes that are unnecessarily dragging the reputation of Christianity through the mud, brutally through the mud, violently and viciously through the mud, ferociously and mercilessly through the mud. And as a result, these mistakes are doing nothing but push non-believers and believers further and further away from Christianity. If these mistakes were resolved, Christians would have a much better chance of converting non-believers to Christianity, as well as holding on to the believers that they already have. And so because of that, I probably shouldn't even be making this video, because if Christians do watch this video and actually do take my advice, they would legitimately improve their chances of maintaining and growing their religion. And that's not necessarily something that I want to happen. However, while I do think that some few hundred, maybe even some few thousand Christians will watch this video, I highly doubt that any of them will actually take my advice. Personally, I believe that Christians will continue to make these mistakes that I'm about to point out, and I believe that as each day, each month, and each year goes by, more and more Christians will be making these mistakes, and more Christians will be making these mistakes more frequently and more radically. And that is what I believe will eventually, inevitably, lead to the death of Christianity. Mistake number 1. Be an awful, terrible person. The first mistake that I see being made by Christians is one that sounds simple, maybe even inconsequential, but nonetheless it is something that is smothering Christianity. For one reason or another, it seems like the Christians who most loudly and proudly adorn themselves and their vehicles and their homes with Christian merchandise tend to be some of the most selfish, some of the most materialistic, and some of the most bigoted human beings. And for this reason alone, I've seen a lot of Christians leaving the church, and I have no doubt in my mind that this is also something that has prevented a lot of non-believers from even considering Christianity. I know for a fact that if I hadn't been born into a Christian family or a Christian environment, I would not consider becoming a Christian now. Because if I didn't know anything about Christianity and all I had to go off of was the people wearing the Christian t-shirts, the people with the Christian tattoos, and the people with the Christian bumper stickers on their cars, I would assume that Christianity was a religion that promoted selfishness, materialism, and hatred. Because that's how those people tend to conduct themselves. I personally know hundreds of Christians who are consumed by materialism. I know a lot of Christians who believe that living in a bigger house, living in a richer neighborhood, wearing name brand clothes, and driving a brand new car somehow makes you better than someone who either can't afford those things or just doesn't care about those things. I know a lot of Christians who believe that being attractive and spending way too much money on your hair, your nails, your skin, and your plastic boobs makes you better than people who either don't worry about those things or can't afford to. I also know a lot of Christians who believe that if you don't care to keep up or fit in with mainstream fashion or mainstream trends, then that makes you a freak and inferior to those who do. I find it beautifully ironic when these same people get Jesus' name tattooed on their back, or they hang a crucifix in their living room, or they put John 3:16 in their Facebook bio, because Jesus Christ spent more time condemning materialism than he did anything else. Jesus condemned materialism 1 time in Acts, 3 times in John, 5 times in Revelation, 33 times in Mark, 70 times in Matthew, and 92 times in Luke. You would know that if you read the Bible, but you would not know that just by looking at the lifestyles practiced by Christians. Now, materialism is bad enough, but it is not the worst thing that you will find abundantly present in the lives of Christians. Here in the Bible Belt of the United States, Christians tend to be very hateful and bigoted towards anyone who isn't a Christian, anyone who isn't white, anyone who isn't straight, or anyone who isn't cisgender or doesn't fit into traditional gender roles. I personally know several people who have been disowned by their entire Christian families for leaving Christianity. I know even more people who have been disowned by their entire Christian families for being gay or for being trans. I even know more than a couple people who have been disowned by their entire white Christian families because they married someone who was not white. I also know a lot of Christians around here who refuse to go in a store or a restaurant or a gas station if it's owned by someone who isn't a Christian, someone who isn't white, or someone who isn't straight. And that's not at all uncommon. In fact, if you live in the Bible Belt of America, chances are you probably know more than a handful of Christians who do the same kind of thing. But I think what's worse than Christians doing all of this stuff is the fact that the Christians who don't do it themselves are aware that it's going on, but yet do nothing to stop it. There is a church not far from here where one of the elders of that congregation is literally a member of the KKK. And everyone there knows it, but they don't have a problem with it, or at least they don't do anything about it. And there's actually another member at that same congregation who is the owner of a local martial arts academy, and he literally told his children that if they ever dated or married someone who was black, he would completely disown them. But for some reason, nobody cares about it. Nobody has a problem with it. Those two guys, and plenty more people just as bad as them, are still respected members of their Christian communities and respected members of their churches. Racism was not originally an inherent part of Christianity, but for some reason it is now a symbiotic aspect of Christian culture. And not all Christians are racists, of course, but I dare you to find me a racist in Alabama who doesn't have a Bible sitting beside his bed. The selfishness, the materialism, and the bigotry don't seem to be leaving Christianity any anytime soon, and Christians seem to be more concerned with overlooking its presence and pretending that it isn't there than actually doing something to eradicate it. And because of that, it's going to continue to become more extreme, and it's going to continue to become more prevalent within Christian culture, until eventually, even more so than now, the decent, the humble, and the loving people will all have abandoned Christianity, and all that will remain is a hollow, mutated corpse of Christianity. That is, unless Christians decide to acknowledge that this infection is growing inside their churches and do something to eradicate it. Mistake number 2. Be ignorant about other religions and yours too. A less sinister mistake, yet perhaps a more prevalent one, is the fact that most Christians, the overwhelming majority of Christians, are completely oblivious when it comes to other religions, other worldviews, and Christianity too. Now, I am not at all an expert when it comes to world religions, except for maybe Christianity, but I am at least decently familiar with most of the major world religions. However, when I have a conversation with a Christian about religion or theology, more often than not, the only other religions that they are even aware of existing are usually Judaism, Islam, and Satanism. But aside from being aware that those religions exist, Christians are usually completely oblivious when it comes to any details or facts about these religions. As a matter of fact, I actually have some adult Christian family members who don't even know the difference between a Muslim and a Hindu, and it's a lot worse than that makes it sound. They assume that anyone who has darker skin but isn't black is Middle Eastern, and they assume that all Middle Eastern people are Muslims. And so because of that, anytime they see an Indian or a Hindu, they assume that they are a Muslim. It's really bad. It's incredibly ignorant and incredibly disrespectful. But unfortunately, that's how a lot of Christians tend to be. It also says a lot about Christians that one of their favorite religions to talk about is Satanism, and they always assume that Satanists actually worship Satan. But like, most Satanists don't worship Satan because most Satanists don't even believe that Satan exists. Christians also constantly accuse atheists of being religious. They tell them that they are members of the religion of evolutionism, or atheism, or naturalism, which goes to show that these Christians don't even know what a religion is, what evolution is, or what atheism is. A religion is an organized system of beliefs and doctrine concerning some form of a higher power or concept that is revered and or worshipped by its followers. You can't just label something a religion because you want to. It has to actually fit the description. Atheism doesn't fit that description, and neither does evolution. Atheism is just the disbelief that gods exist, and evolution is nothing but a biological process. It has nothing to do with whether or not a god exists, or whether or not a religion is true. In fact, most people who believe in evolution are not atheists. Most people who believe in evolution are theists. They're people who believe that a god or multiple gods exist. So the fact that so many Christians try to lump evolution and atheism together and call it a religion just goes to show how uneducated they are when it comes to religion and theological issues, and not to mention science. But it isn't just other religions and other worldviews that Christians tend to be oblivious about. Most Christians are completely oblivious and entirely ignorant when it comes to their own religion also. Most Christians, no matter how many Christian tattoos they have on their body, and no matter how many Christian bumper stickers they have on their car, are not Christians because they read or studied the Bible. Most Christians are Christians because they were born into a Christian family and a Christian culture. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it does ultimately result in Christianity shooting itself in the foot. Because despite the fact that there are over 2 billion Christians in the world, most of them can't even tell you why they believe in Christianity, because it wasn't a decision that they ever consciously made. They never read the Bible, they never studied Christian apologetics, and so they honestly have no idea what Christianity even is below the surface or how to defend it, no matter how personally attached to it they are. And over the last few decades, this has already become a problem for Christianity, and it will continue to become a more serious problem in the decades to come, primarily for 3 reasons. The first being the progression of our scientific understanding of life, of Earth, and of the cosmos. The second being the progression of our culture as we leave behind barbaric and bigoted ideals. And the third being the ever-growing connection and the ever-growing communication between cultures with the internet. These 3 things challenge the stories and the ethics and the divinity of the Bible itself. And if Christians aren't educated, and if Christians aren't prepared to confront these things when they inevitably face them, they will be forced to do one of two things. Either they will have to admit that the Bible, or at least their understanding of the Bible, is wrong, or they will shake their fist in the air and refuse to admit that they've been proven wrong, and that will do nothing other than make Christianity look just as foolish as they are. If Christians want to avoid all of this, if Christians want to survive the progression of science, the progression of society, and the elimination of cultural barriers, they will have to do more than just listen to the newsboys and watch God's Not Dead while they get Christian tattoos all over their bodies. Christians will have to educate themselves on other religions, other worldviews, and they will have to gain an intellectual understanding of the Bible and of Christianity. Mistake number 3, tying Christianity to conspiracy theories and politics. I do have to confess that while I do believe the last two mistakes will eventually inevitably lead to the demise of Christianity, I do believe that will take a very, very, very long time, because I do believe that there is hope and potential for Christianity to adapt and grow with the world around it. However, this third mistake is very, very different. This third mistake is something that I didn't even see coming 5 years ago. And just in the last 5 years, it has already damaged Christianity in such a devastating way that I don't even see a road to recovery in the next century. And that fatal mistake, this third mistake, is fusing Christianity with conspiracy theories and politics. This is something that has been going on for the last century and probably far further back than that. I guess I was always aware of it happening, but used to it just felt like a small Christian subculture. I mean, there were the Christians who believed that the earth was flat, and there were the Christians who believed that Obama was the Antichrist, and there were the Christians who believed that Harry Potter was created by the devil in order to get children interested in dark magic. But all of that, it all just felt like a subculture, you know, a small subculture of Christianity. I barely even saw that stuff on Facebook. I barely even heard Christians that talked about those things. Most Christians just shared Bible verses on Facebook, or shared the newest trailer for the latest and greatest God's Not Dead movie. And most Christians just talked about Jesus or church or VeggieTales, you know? But now when I look on Facebook, now when I talk to Christians, it looks like the conspiracy theories and the politics are the religion, and practicing Christianity is the subculture. I don't know if Donald Trump himself is responsible for the radicalization of Christian conspiracy theories and Christian nationalism, or if Christians were already becoming more radical and Donald Trump just happened to be someone who was willing to publicize and propagate their ideas in exchange for their support. I don't know what happened first, but I do know that they formed a union, a marriage between the three of them, and over the last 5 years, they've all seemed to fuse together. They're inseparable now and indistinguishable from one another. Just like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three entities, yet all the same entity. The same is also true of Donald Trump, Christianity, and conspiracy theories. Of course, not all Christians are Trump supporters, and not all Christians are conspiracy theorists, but a remarkably large amount of them are, and their voices are very loud, and their voices reach very, very far. So much so that to me and to anyone outside of the church, that's almost all you hear, and that's almost all you see from Christians. I don't see Christians sharing the gospel on Facebook as much as I see Christians sharing anti-vax conspiracy theories, climate change denial, and other anti-science propaganda. And I don't see Christians conducting themselves in a Christ-like manner as much as I see Christians conducting themselves in a Trump-like manner. Proud, hateful, and abrasive rather than humble, loving, and compassionate. And it's very unfortunate for Christians that this is taking place, because it doesn't have to. Instead of latching onto and propagating conspiracy theories, Christians could embrace reason, Christians could embrace science, and Christians could embrace critical thinking. There are plenty of Christians who do, and it doesn't cost them their faith, it doesn't cost them their theology, and it doesn't cost them their relationship with Jesus. And instead of promoting the values of the Republican Party or the values of Donald Trump, Christians could instead just promote the values of Jesus Christ, which conveniently are already much more progressive, much more egalitarian, and much more compatible with our modern society than the values of Donald Trump. There is, of course, some conflict between Christianity and our modern progressive culture, but it is far less than the conflict that exists between our modern progressive culture and right-wing politics. So when Christians try to attack Republican politics, conservative politics, and the values of Donald Trump onto Christianity, they're just shooting themselves in the foot. You don't have to make Christianity anti-immigration because Jesus wasn't. You don't have to make Christianity opposed to the rich giving their excess wealth to the poor because Jesus absolutely wasn't. You don't have to make Christianity pro-war and pro-violence because Jesus wasn't. You don't have to make Christianity hateful, condescending, or abrasive because Jesus certainly was not. By incorporating and mixing and fusing conspiracy theories and right-wing politics with Christianity, Christians are mutating Christianity. They're putting it through a metamorphosis and it's becoming something entirely different, something that is far removed from what it originally was. And as a result, Christians are leaving Christianity, and Christians will continue to leave Christianity because they don't want to be associated with what Christianity has become or what it will continue to become. And the Christians that remain aren't even something that Paul, that Peter, or that Jesus would even recognize. Christians are killing Christianity with their conspiracy theories and with their right-wing politics. And if true Christians don't start boldly preaching against this heresy, then Christianity isn't going to make it very far. If you're a Christian and you care about the future of Christianity, then honestly you probably should be taking this video a lot more seriously than I'm sure most Christians watching this are. I know that if I was still a Christian, I would be horrified, mortified, petrified by the current state of Christianity. And that's crazy to think about because it was just like 6 or 7 years ago, I was still a Christian and the Christian landscape was totally different. I mean, there were hypocrites, you know, but it wasn't like it is now. I never would have imagined that my fellow Christians would be supporting somebody like Donald Trump as passionately as they are. That's something that blows my mind. I mean, I remember if there were people who acted like him or conducted themselves like him, most Christians would kick him out of their church because they wouldn't put up with that. You know, he's been divorced how many times? He's been remarried how many times? He's cheated on how many wives? And Christians just adore him. It's crazy. Christianity has changed so much since I left. It's mind-boggling, you know? I don't know what I would be doing now if I was a Christian, but I know I would be preaching really hard, and I know that Christians would hate me a lot more than they hate me now as a non-believer. But I'm just glad that it's not my problem. But if you're a Christian, it is your problem, and you probably need to recognize that these things are problems and do something about it. Start preaching to your brethren, you know. It's not my problem, but I'm just sharing my observations because these are valuable observations no matter how petty you think these things are. They are things that would concern me if I was still a Christian. They would concern me a lot. But anyway, that's all that I've got to say for today. So if you enjoyed this video or if you got anything out of it, make sure you click the like button. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, go ahead and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, make sure you activate that little bell icon down below. And if you would like to support my channel and help me produce more videos in the future, you can go over to Patreon and donate as little as $1. It helps out a lot. And if you'd like to help my channel grow and if you'd like to help me hit 1,000 subscribers, which I am very, very close to, then share this video or other videos of mine on your social media with your friends, with your family, or just with complete strangers. It helps out more than anything else. Once again, I appreciate you guys supporting me. I appreciate you guys watching my videos, and I'll see you in the next worship service.